Hi, how are you?
It's Wednesday, April 2nd, 2014, convening the regular meeting of the Urban Renewal Commission. Take roll call.
Commissioner Neely.
Here.
Commissioner Pauly.
Here.
Sorry. Commissioner Roth.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
He is here, but not present.
He's coming.
Back to warm.
Commissioner Benville.
Here.
Commissioner Mumm.
Here.
And Commissioner Mengelberg.
Here. Okay, we're going to move on to citizen comments. Are there any citizen comments registered?
Nope, not today.
Okay. Is there anybody opposed to adopting the agenda as presented?
That's fine.
Okay. Agenda is adopted. On to general business. 14-204, Clackamas Cove LLC, request for DDA time limit extension. Do we have a staff report?
We do, but I cannot read it because I can't connect to the internet for some reason.
Let me get you the hard
Thank you, David. Okay, I got it right here. Thanks. Yeah.
Unlike
yeah.
Commissioner Smith, I have a hard copy backup. Just in case.
So we received a let's see, a request from Clackamas Cove LLC a couple weeks ago. I think it was March 18th, requesting a time extension for the DDA due to a BOLI appeal that they're filing. They received a determination letter from BOLI saying that the project is a public work. However, there were several contested items there. And so Clackamas Cove LLC has since developed a statement of appeal and submitted it to BOLI, and they need time to review that. And so that's basically what this request is just to extend the DDAs for that review period. So that would leave, right now the end date we have is August 15th. That would push it out 2 months to October 15th. And probably looking at a construction toward the end of November, given the timing of the last end date. So with that, are there any questions? Yes.
Commissioner Roth?
Could you explain the process of the BOLI determination? What caused this denial?
Well, there were several findings that BOLI had. I sent an email out to the commission about a week and a half ago explaining those. Just to sum it up, one was the money that was already contributed for the engineering and architectural services back when the DDA was the first
This is $775,000?
No, it was
Or the 1.2 million?
227,000.
What about the 1.2 million that was previous to that?
That I think that's part of that. Let me see how they phrase that. I have those facts. So,
Is it a percentage of the total cost? Is that what they look at?
yeah, they look at the total contribution. So they included the land, which they valued at $2.7 million. That is the fair reuse appraisal that we have to do as an urban renewal agency. They included the $227,000, and I'm still trying to figure out how they came to that for the engineering and architectural services. They included
Added the amount that we already paid in. Is that correct? For the architecture and engineering services?
Yes, they have that figured
Okay.
in. They had both Phase 1 and Phase 2 listed as one project,
Okay.
and so that's the $745,000. All of that combined with the land value that they used was well over the $750,000 threshold. So Clackamas Cove LLC has contested the value of the property, going back to the initial appraisal, which was negative $12 million. Because it has no improvements on the site. They've dropped the request for the $745,000 from the Urban Renewal Commission, and they've accepted the $227,000 as part of that. But they're moving forward on those two primary issues, and then the project timing as well.
I'd still like to get an answer, though, about the 1.2. You said you have the facts about that part.
Darrow on the Cove. Originally, the commission put in $3 million, and that was $1,300,000 was for property, $500,000 was for the relocation and a little strip of land from Glacier, and then $1,176,000 was a contribution for consulting. When they reviewed that, the percentage of that consulting that applies to the current project came out to $227,000. So that's where that number came up.
Okay.
The most unique thing is that they've got probably at least 6 major errors of fact. And it's just mind-boggling that you could even do that. Matter of fact, our attorney wrote the head of BOLI and said, we're absolutely cannot believe that you would make this many errors of fact. I called them yesterday to find out where they were in terms of answering our rebuttal. And they said that they had brought 2 managers in to work on it, which is good because I feel like the guy that did the original did not even read the appraisal. The appraisal said it's worth $2,750,000 after you do all the improvements.
Right.
All the improvements are $4,545,000. So if you sell it to us for $10, we put in all the infrastructure, we're upside down by $1.8 million.
If it was worth 2.7, you wouldn't be sitting here.
Oh.
We wouldn't have the property either, probably.
Yeah, no,
We would've
it's,
sold it by-
it's just, and so I did get a hold of the appraiser and had him write a separate letter to them. And his letter says that you missed looking at the fact that it's not improved yet. As is, it's worth
Negative.
nothing. A negative. And they actually said that.
Right.
So that was very supportive of our position. So it is very frustrating to see something like that, which is totally wrong. But I guess the good part of it is that I kind of, as I mentioned to Eric, I look at it almost like when you go into for an insurance claim, they deny it until you get serious. And we were very serious. We submitted a 24-page rebuttal, which the attorneys prepared, Davis Wright Tremaine. So I feel very confident that we'll get it turned around.
So I want to ask something just for clarification for the Urban Renewal Commission. So did you send a request for reconsideration to BOLI? Because I know there's a process there. You can send a letter for reconsideration, and then you can send a request for a hearing.
You have 15 days after they publish theirs. We did it within the 15-day period. We submitted a 24-page rebuttal that literally went through every issue that they brought up and showed that it was incorrect. I mean, literally incorrect. So that's with them now. And as I mentioned, I did talk to them yesterday, and they thought it would be, they wouldn't give me an exact time, but he said because there's 2 additional people that they have brought in to review
So it'll be
everything.
quicker.
And that's probably because our attorney, Chris Martin with Davis Wright, knows the senior guy at BOLI, Brad Devakian, who is the director and the commissioner there. And she called him and talked to him and said, it's unfortunate that you can actually have something published like this that has so many errors of fact. So, and he said that they will look at it very strongly, and he said he brought up a case that where they had to reverse it, and he says, if this is what that is, that's what we'll do. So hopefully they'll do their homework this time instead of just...
But you said you were asking if there's going to be a reconsideration versus a hearing, right?
There's 2 options.
There's 2 different ways.
There's 2 options, and you're in the reconsideration option right now.
The expectation is that we'll get the reconsideration letter back, and if there's an issue there,
Then
we'll
it
definitely
doesn't
ask for a hearing. But I hope that doesn't go.
So we're in the first part of the process. So hopefully it'll go smoothly and quickly. Good. I have a couple other commissioners that have questions. Commissioner Neely?
What's referred to here as an appeal. Are both of these mechanisms through BOLI itself, the request and the request for a hearing would be through BOLI itself? That is, it's not going through a court system, which could take
BOLI.
eons.
It's BOLI.
So it's strictly a BOLI evaluation.
That's right. 2-step process.
Okay.
Reconsideration letter and then the hearing.
It's just part of their process.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Benville.
Yeah, so one of my questions is 60 days enough?
I actually expect them, because it's very straightforward, and we presented a lot of the basics that show why they were wrong, and those weren't just us saying it. We gave them backup data for it. I would expect them to come with something next week. Actually, that's my expectation. I mean, it's a much easier process. They've already gone through it, and now they can just take these facts and prove that we are correct and that our facts are correct and theirs are wrong. So it shouldn't take them that long, but I can't say for sure.
And then the other one is that I'm assuming that all the other dates that are part of the DDA move out 60 days too.
We
Right.
reviewed all the timelines with Steve Janik as well, just to make sure, and he's comfortable with what we're doing as well.
Okay. Okay.
Eric will have to revise the spreadsheet.
Right.
Please
The
not
one
software.
that,
Yeah, and I hear he has the software. He's
Yeah.
learning.
Yes, yeah, I just finished it, and now we're going to change it.
It's so easy.
Right.
But yeah, it's
Yep.
and just this is a public-private partnership, and we're bound to have another. I just think a project of this scale, we're going to have these from time to time on
Yeah.
different issues. Hopefully, they won't be as bureaucratic as this one is going to be, but there may be others in the future, and we just have to work together to get this thing done.
One of the primary reasons for setting the end date back 2 months as well is because it doesn't make a lot of sense to invest a lot of money in the land use process if the BOLI's going to come back and say, sorry, it's prevailing wage. And if it doesn't pencil, then...
Right.
Okay, these are all good questions. Commissioner Mengelberg.
More of a pragmatic question. If it truly is a 2-month time delay, does that push your construction back into next year with the weather and so on?
We're going to try to just push it as fast as we can to actually get it started this year. So that's our intention. That's our expectation.
Commissioner Roth.
Well, thank you for clarifying that 1.2 million thing. Actually, I've forgotten my question.
I'd just like to say that I'm glad Ed was here because they actually
no.
don't explain that
Yeah.
that change, and that was before my time, so I didn't have that history. So
I remember now. If, say, they do come through with their determination next week, and Eric's moved his spreadsheet out 60 days, are you going to move your spreadsheet back?
I could do that, yeah. Just the click of a mouse.
Practice on
Go.
that program.
Undo.
He's got nothing else to do.
They-
Yeah.
Keep that document.
Well, I didn't know if you were going to still leave the timeline out there, so I was, no.
Yeah, I can. change
What
it
you're
up.
doing is authorizing, so it isn't mandating that it has to be
Right.
60. If it's sooner, I think everybody here is motivated. So.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, are we ready for a motion?
You got to read the motion.
I do. Yep. So based on all the time and effort and money that both parties have put into this, I move to allow for a time extension of 60 days based on the BOLI request from the developer.
And I've seconded.
It's It's been moved and seconded.
Technology,
Oh, now
isn't
what?
it great?
Every once in a while, it does this to me.
Want to take a voice?
Okay, let's
Okay.
take a roll call.
All right. Commissioner Mum.
Aye.
Commissioner Roth.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Neely.
Aye.
Commissioner Benville.
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg.
Aye.
And Commissioner Pauly.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you once
Great.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming and answering our questions, and we're excited to get the project moving along, as are you. Thank you. Okay, great. We're moving on to the consent agenda. Is there any questions with this, or?
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
All right. Commissioner Mum.
Aye.
Commissioner Roth.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Neely.
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Benville.
Aye.
And Chair Pauly.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items? Hearing none?
I'm going to suggest something, if I might. I don't know if there's much we can do about it since it's not our property. We've had a pullout on the landfill. And they've never made a request. I mean, no, they've never made a formal request of us to help fund it. I presume.
We have this on our reports.
Oh, okay.
We're going to talk about it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that something that you wanted to put on
Well,
a...
the study session.
It's
If
on
he's
the
gonna talk
study
about it,
Oh,
then-
you're gonna, okay.
Yeah, so if he's going to talk about it, that'll be
If you
fine.
want to, after I tell you what I have to say, then we can do that.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Are there any other future agenda items? Okay, hearing no more, we'll move on to city manager's report.
Thank you. So Eric was given two ostensible reasons for the pullout on the Rossman site. One was Measure 3407 and the uncertainty that evolves around that potential ballot measure, and the other one was what they consider to be an overwhelming cost of redevelopment, which we know of. That's not a surprise. Now, I told Eric that I feel very strongly that when something like this doesn't work, and you look at the developer and the kind of due diligence they did before they got involved. I recall very specifically some poignant conversations Eric and I and Tony and other staff members had with Donahue Schreiber's representatives. We were very candid about what we thought the challenges were. We were even cautionary about some of the, and we told the story about what happened with the rivers, for example, and how some of the challenges that they would meet in the community potentially. And we wanted to make sure we were just as honest and open about the challenges as we could possibly be. So they went into this thing knowing full well, and this includes the lease down there from the golf course, which is problematic. So they went into this thing with eyes wide open, knowing, I think, exactly pretty close to what they were getting into. They had access to public records that we had from the Rivers Project, so they were able to look at that, including Mr. Bruning's analysis of what the impediments were, and 15 to 22 million were the figures that were tossed around as far as mitigating the landfill conditions. So I believe very strongly that there are other things at play here that we're not going to be privy to and that we're not ever going to know that are causing this. It's always been a challenging site. It's going to continue to be. I also believe that the Cove, once that, assuming it takes off, I think eventually there's going to be enough value at the site that some of these problems are going to be worth taking on. But we don't know. For example, Mr. Parker, he's lowered his price, I understand, considerably from when I was in my office one time, and these two gentlemen were going at it, and one of them said, your property's really, you should pay me to take it because you want $8 million and the redevelopment costs are $20. And unless the city props up some money here to really make this attractive, you've got a bigger liability than an asset. Well, of course, the conversation eroded a little bit from there, significantly. But there was some reality in that discussion. I mean, that was part of the reality check of what that site is. And I'm glad that based on what I've heard, that the landowner is more realistic about what they have there as far as an asset, but they still want to get something for it. So what Eric and I have is this, and you for that matter, but we're the people that are going to be out there beating the bushes trying to find a new person of interest to come onto the site and develop it. But I think sometimes, as much as we try, sometimes you just have to wait for fruit to ripen before you can pick it. And that may be the situation we're in. And a lot of this has also been hampered by access to credit, which anybody who's even trying to refinance your house, I mean, you got to give them divorce papers from 10 years ago. And it's just kind of, that's the credit market that we're in, and there could be a factor there that we don't know about. So we're going to go out and redouble our efforts to try to find a new developer. Any of you have hints, ideas, suggestions, send them our way, and we'll track them down. And I think you've already started setting up meetings with some potential developers, trying to see what our next move is. I mean, we've still got a piece of property. We want to get it redeveloped. And I almost wish the Urban Renewal Agency owned it, because it would be easier to recognize that it's really not worth anything in its current condition. And if it is, it's very little. So that's my speech.
I'd just add real quick.
Yeah.
One of the things that probably needs to be considered too is Donahue Schreiber's parent company is J.P. Morgan Chase, and if you've been following business news lately,
Yes.
they've been having some trouble. So.
Okay, Commissioner Roth has a comment.
Oh, I've got, well, one.
Question?
What if you don't have a divorce 10 years ago? Do you have to go find one?
I was just using an example of how the bar is just so much higher right now. There's a lot of paranoia in the lending industry, and it's affecting every developer, I think.
My real question is, and now we have this other one that was in the newspaper this morning or last night of the Walmart site.
Up for sale.
So we've got another piece that we're going to be looking at, trying to market.
That's a really valuable commercial site that could generate significant taxes. So, you know, there's a lot of opinions about
It might
Walmart.
also be a brownfield, but we don't have an urban renewal agency.
Right.
No, we don't, not anymore.
No urban renewal.
But we don't have to market that one. I have a feeling that one's going to have
Right.
a lot fewer hurdles than the future site. And Walmart's probably going to make a little something on the transaction.
Well, good. Maybe we'll get what we want there, Kathy. We'll see.
You mean you didn't want
Bowling alley.
Oh, bowling alley. Yes. I'm not saying that. Yeah, bowling alley. That's it.
That was across the street.
It was across the street.
Well, great, so we'd have to
It
go.
was across the street.
So I guess my point is I don't really think there's a need for a work session, but if we get information, and we're going to be scouring the country looking for some opportunities, or you bring us some, any of you give us some ideas to run down. If we get something substantive to bring back in a work session, we'll initiate that right away. But I'm not sure what we would do right now with a work session on the site.
Okay, ideas are good. Good thinking.
Well, my question is that the developers spent a lot of time and money trying to figure out who all the property owners were, all the lease agreements, and even the person that had that lease agreement for the driving range.
Yeah.
Is there a way that they can sell those rights, or figure out a way that we can still use them and pass them along to another potential developer?
Well, this developer didn't actually spend very much because they benefited from Mr. Bruning's efforts there.
Okay.
But they did get a deal on the driving range, which is that shows me that a deal can be worked out.
I've inquired about that with Donahue Schreiber, and there may be a possibility there. Disclose some of
So,
that.
just to kind of piggyback on that question, so the due diligence that was done originally by Fred Brewing, is that information around for future
It's in my
developers?
office.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Sounds good. Any other questions or comments?
And there's no privacy attached to it?
No,
simply
there are no
because-
disclosure clauses or anything like that.
Yeah.
Public records.
All public records.
Yeah, well, that's
Okay.
valuable then.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
huge.
it is.
That's
We
very
paid
helpful.
plenty for it.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of
The
staff
important
time,
the
homework.
important one here right now at this stage, I think, is what the deal was that was worked with Donahue Schreiber, the most recent one. I think if we can get some of that information and utilize some of that to bring another developer to the table, I think that would be crucial. So that's what we're working on right now.
Good.